Good morning. Let me start by having the students that are here from the 11 colleges, if they could just stand so everybody can see who they are and maybe talk to them when we have a break. So there's students here from all over. And these are students who are making, obviously, sufficient progress to graduation that they can miss classes. and hopefully use part of this as their class. So let me start by suggesting that we've kind of been run off track the last few years by thinking somehow that there was a silver bullet out there for higher education, that somebody would develop a tool or a kit, somebody would develop some kind of device, some kind of thing, some kind of brain scanner, or some for-profit university would all of a sudden swoop in and replace the entire model, and what we think of as a university would never exist again because it would be replaced. Well, those kinds of things are not the solution. They're not the remedy. They are bits and pieces of a bigger problem. And when we reflect a mirror on ourselves in higher education, what we find is that one of the things that has limited us in operating at scale, you might remember if you're a student of American history, we never built a national university in this country. There were 5 or 6 attempts at that. It was discussed in Philadelphia at the summer conference to design the Constitution of the United States in 1787. It was voted down repeatedly, never made it out. But we did build these fantastic public universities that serve each of our states in kind of unique ways. And so these universities have been competing against each other for the last couple of hundred years, and we're not getting to where we need to be. So the real innovation on the table today is not a tool or a technique or a device. The real disruptive innovation that's occurring is this alliance, it's collaboration. And so those of you that think that somehow this is like APLU or this or that, it's not like any of these things. We have specific metrics, specific objectives, specific things that we're working toward, a willingness to innovate together. We've all agreed to do 4 things. We've agreed to increase the number of graduates, and we have different ways of doing that. We've agreed to increase the diversity, particularly the economic diversity of our graduates, and we all have different ways of doing that. We've agreed to find a way to innovate and collaborate together, and we've agreed to work to lower our cost by enhancing our effectiveness and to measure ourselves against that. There aren't any associations, there aren't any groups, and there aren't any alliances that have that as their purpose at scale. And the key is scale in this particular undertaking. Now, we are different schools, 5 traditional land-grant schools that remain egalitarian. That is, somewhere along the line, they didn't decide that they're going to handpick their class. 2 flagship schools, Texas and Kansas, and 4, I don't know what to call them other than behemoth Sunbelt colleges running from Southern California to Arizona to Georgia to Florida, all new baby universities that are growing up trying to figure out how to be of service to the breadth of our country, not to the hand-picked selected of our country. Because it does turn out that we've got to drive our numbers up for our economy to be more successful. Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to suffer through something here that's a little bit unusual, and that is you're with a group of college presidents, so you're going to get a little academic lecture here. But it's going to be in very short form. So we're going to get you all these slides. This is basically the challenge. Rates, think of this as percentages. So only 51.3% of the students that enter a 4-year college graduate in the United States. Only 29%, 30% graduate from a 2-year college. High school graduation rate. These are the numbers that we'd have to get to attain our national outcomes, to get the kinds of numbers of students that we need at these levels of educational attainment. And you can see the scale. So it's a tough problem. By the way, the data is old. This is how we've been doing. Just think of the dots. It's a downwardly sloped curve. It means in the last 4 years, no progress. No matter what's going on, no matter what tools are being put in place on a national level, no progress. Let's look at the scale. So David, I don't know if David's still here from the New York Times. He had an interesting article the other day where he talked about a series of schools that graduate 75% or more of their students. Most of those schools were not public. I think there was one public school on the list that he talked about in the article. Scale, that word in the upper right-hand corner. This is a behemoth country, 320 million people we are approaching, growing to over 400 million. the scale of 17-year-olds per year, millions. The scale of what it would take to get 50% to college and technical degree attainment. So think of college as 2-year degree, 4-year degree, technical degree, bachelor's degree, all those things, blending it all together. This is how far off we are. This is where we are today in these numbers. This is what would be required as the slope of the curve change in college graduates to meet the scaling problem. You can look at the numbers on the side. 1 million people, not 15 people. So let's just look at it from this perspective. So this is our trend again. So one of the things that we have been doing is lamenting the extent to which we should have been acting earlier as a group, and for whatever set of complicated reasons we weren't. Forget history, now we are. And the Alliance is intended to take this problem on at scale. So to reach this 50% college attainment rate by 2020 means 480,000 additional bachelor's degrees per year relative to where we were, per year. Now, how do you do that? This is kind of interesting. It's small. You could go to the top 50 liberal arts colleges. So last year they produced 23,000 degrees. You go to the Ivy League, 15,000 degrees. Great schools, prominently written about all of the time. Unscalable. They cannot be scaled. I was a trustee of Bowdoin College for many years, one of the top 5 liberal arts colleges. It cannot be scaled. The board would annihilate any president that said, let's triple the size of the institution. That's not the model. However, the public universities, this is just the Alliance schools. Now look at the diversity of the student body. Look at the diversity now. People wonder why these schools necessarily graduate more students or more effectively. It's all kinds of things. But look at these numbers here. Number of Pell Grant students in the entire Ivy League, 9,800, 119,000 in these 11 public universities alone. It's not throwing a rock at the Ivy League. I was a tenured professor at Columbia University. I was one of the provosts there, so it's a great school and a great place. It is not scalable. How do you tackle this problem at scale? So you have to increase. If we increased our degrees by our production by 25%, it's 19,900 new degrees. If we did it at all public universities, 4-year schools, 283,000 if we could increase degree productivity by 25%. Now remember, there's more people in the United States today alive that went to college and didn't finish than went to college and did finish. Just process that for a second. And so when we think about the competitiveness of our country, we have to worry a lot about this. And this is the distribution of college degree attainment, bachelor's degree in this case, by the top quartile families, about 80%. The bottom 3 quartiles, you can see the bottom quartile, which is the family income that I came from growing up. The bottom quartile, under 10%, unchanged, and since this date right here, $500 billion in Pell Grants have been spent. $500 billion in Pell Grants. So obviously, whatever it is that we think that we're doing, whatever it is that we believe that we're achieving, isn't working. Therefore, 11 major public universities, deeply committed to innovation, deeply committed to making things happen, are going to come together and we're going to learn from each other. No school can do this by themselves. We've been pounding away at this in Arizona. We cannot do this by ourselves. Each individual school must figure out how to work with each other, and then we believe that if we can make this work, then we can break this tradition of not working together among and between the universities. And then if we can do that, then we can change. It turns out, by the way, that if you actually have to produce 400,000 more college graduates per year, you're not going to get any from here. That market is saturated, oversaturated, whatever. The only way to be successful is to do what we have agreed to do, which is to greatly expand the number of lower income students achieving a college degree.